Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Welcome back to the Private Lenders Podcast. I'm Jason from Hard Money Bankers, and live with me today from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Jeff from Best REI Funding. Looking forward to a quick interview with Jeff. I've known Jeff, Chris and myself have known Jeff probably 5 or 6 years now. We have very, we have a lot in common with being very passionate about the private lending business. And, I'm definitely looking forward to picking Jeff's brain. He's got a wealth of knowledge, not just within private lending, but business in general and real estate investing in general. Jeff, thanks so much for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm kind of excited to see where this thing goes today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely want to dig into your hard money lending operation. But before that, just do a quick intro about how you got into just real estate in general. And, when was that? And, how did you even stumble across real estate investing as a business? Well,
so I probably got started the way most people did, right? I mean, it was 20 years ago. Infomercials were kind of the big thing. It just so happens that the infomercial I saw was running in the middle of the day on PBS, because Robert Kiyosaki was actually on PBS helping them raise capital, because, PBS is viewer funded. And my wife and I were just sitting in bed watching TV, and, we had just finished building our house for ourselves, and we had self-generaled it. And my wife's like, I think we could do that. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like it'd be kind of something fun to do. And, next thing you know, you're buying a course and you got your nose to the grindstone.
Exactly. And then that led into what? Primarily fixing and flipping, buying rental properties. Like, what was your strategy of choice at the beginning?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was a flipper. And the first probably 5 years, I was pretty active. I'd have anywhere from 5 to 10 houses going at a time. And, so if anybody that does the math, 20 years ago was 2004, which is right before the crash happened.
Yep.
So I started flipping. Lucky for me, I got too big for my own britches and realized it. And I actually scaled my business back about right as the crash was happening. So I didn't get caught with my pants down as much as like a lot of other people did. And, so you scale back. I had raised private capital to do all my flips and, kept going to the REIAs. And, from there, I just kind of stumbled into helping my friends with some of the private capital that I had raised, because now I didn't have a place to put it. And I accidentally started a lending company, about the 5-year mark, just helping my friends.
Didn't even realize that you were a private lender, because but again, like a lot of private lenders who start hard money, they have, even if they don't realize it, it's like, you might have more experience than you think, right? Like, you knew where to find properties, you knew how to flip properties, you knew what construction was, you knew how to find capital for it, which can be challenging for folks as well. And it's just like, okay, well, I'm guessing that's when it clicked of like, let me just marry all of my traits together and start just being the lender.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, I started lending about 15 years ago now. And the truth is, the first, 6-7 years, I honestly didn't take it very serious. It was just more or less like a side hustle. I mean, I really enjoyed doing it, and I was having a lot of fun with my friends, because it enabled me to make some extra capital for myself and my family. But it also allowed me to partner and get even more experience and get exposed to a lot of deals that I wasn't doing myself. And so I just kind of treated it like a game, and I was just playing and just having fun.
Well, and also, private lending is not nearly as sexy as flipping properties on the actual like stuff you're doing on a regular basis, and also the amount of money that you potentially can make, right? Mm-hmm. If we're lending out $100,000 and we're at 13 and 3 or whatever, you're making $16,000 a year, off that $100,000. Well, and it could be your money. Let's say it's your money, right? Yep. If you have that money, you can go buy 5 properties and put down $20,000 into each one and get a lender, a bank, or a private lender, and you can make whatever $20,000 a flip, maybe more, and double that money. So when I'm talking to a lot of folks that are that are flippers, it's like, hey, listen, this might not be as sexy as you think, but
Yeah.
Especially the younger ones, the older ones that have been through owning houses, owning rental properties, and they're like, I'm wiping my hands clean of this crap because this is too much work. Like it works great for them, but I think younger generation, it's they got to learn to get their hands dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I bump into a lot of people today that are looking for the easy button, and I get a lot of people that ask me like, how in the world do I become a lender? And then as soon as I start telling them and they realize it's not sexy and, I'm going to close this loan and I'm going to make $5,000 because it's not that big of a loan. And they're like, yeah, but if I flip the house myself, I could make 40 or 50. And I'm like, yep, I know.
Exactly.
But, I'd rather lend money, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting old and lazy, but, I'd much rather lend money and be able to stay home or jump on a cruise ship. Because I mean, I've closed loans from the middle of the Caribbean on a cruise ship, so the freedom and flexibility to still do deals, but not have as much responsibility and accountability for it is also sexy to me now. It wasn't back in the day, but it is now.
Yeah, I agree. And it also is a good transition because you understood the real estate business as a whole. There's some lenders that I talk to that don't understand the mechanics of a real estate transaction. And not that it's not brain surgery. Anyone can learn it. It's not all that difficult. But like I take for granted sometimes that like it's just a regular real estate transaction and we're just a bank or we're just a lender. When you started Best REI Funding, and I don't know if that's what the name was originally when you started private lending, it probably wasn't. You're probably just lending under whatever. But like, what was like when you made it official? Did you hire employees? I mean, you already had a business that was owning flips and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have employees, or were you kind of just a one-man shop and you had to kind of be responsible for everything?
No, I was a one-man show. Most people that know who I am know that I used to have a business partner, and when the two of us were doing that stuff, it was primarily me doing most of the work on that because Derek was handling a lot of the flips and things, and he had kind of taken over the construction side of our business, and I had taken over kind of the lending side because I don't know, I love a good puzzle and a good head game, and the more intellectual stuff, and I got tired of swinging the hammer. So it was really just the two of us doing things, and and it worked out really well. And we were actually anti-employee back in the day. Now I love them, but in the beginning we were afraid of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is.
Yeah,
I certainly was. They changed my life when you know how to hire the right people. Yep. What did like? I don't want to say like day one or month one, but what did like the first season of your business look like, or maybe even the first year? Like, what did you have? Did you have lots of deals coming in? Did you have plenty of capital, or was it challenging to get that? Like, was it, maybe try to walk through kind of what startup stage looked like?
Well, so we've actually gone through 2 startup phases, which is a little unusual, right? So when we started taking the business serious, we had actually, I don't want to say partnered because it wasn't an official partnership, but we started doing some work with a local mortgage broker. And so working with him, sales started to take off quite a bit. And, we were doing 4 or 5 loans a month at the time. And as soon as we started working with him, it grew in a pretty short amount of time. It wasn't like overnight, but in a relatively short amount of time, we went to, 10 loans a month. And he was very charismatic. Lots of people liked him. So raising capital got a little bit easier because, I'm an introvert. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to put on the dog and pony show and do that kind of stuff. And then, after working with him for a few years, he broke away from us. He had a different opportunity that he thought was more beneficial. And unfortunately, he stabbed us in the back on the way out the door as he did it, which, unfortunately is a common thing that happens. And so when he went out the door, he hurt us bad enough that we almost had to start over. We didn't start over, but it sure felt like it.
Sure.
And so 6 to 9 months worth of time went by and we had to rebuild the company. And that was when we actually switched because we did have a different name. It was called Avid Financial. And then we rebranded underneath Best REI Funding after he left, because we were trying to make a better brand for ourselves and have a name that meant more about what it was that we were trying to do. But after about a year, we were not only completely recovered, we had grown to about double what we were doing with him. And so, we went through 2 phases. Both were painful. The second one being wicked painful. The first one not as painful because we had help.
Yeah. And one of the nice things about being the lender on these deals compared to maybe just being the owner of real estate is there's no market that's a bad market to be the lender, right?
True.
If the market's pumping and everything's great, like, okay, that's a good thing. Yeah, it's gonna be more competitive to get your hands on some really good opportunities, but like the market's great. If the market's crap, that means there's not capital out there and you have the capital. So you can, in essence, cherry pick to get the best of the best deals. You don't have to give high leverage. I think there's a misconception in lending that, if, I lend at 10% down or 90% or whatever it is, it's like, we don't have to. You do whatever you want. If you want to lend at 10 LTV, you're allowed to lend at 10 LTV. And I think that's one thing that I know you like about this business as well. You use the word puzzle before. It's like, how can I structure this?
Yep.
Me too. The way I look at it is I can be a deal junkie without taking all the risk or without having to do all the heavy lifting.
That's exactly it. And those are the exact words that I've actually even used with borrowers and other lenders as I talk about what I'm doing. I'm like, listen, I'm a deal junkie and I get to live vicariously through everybody else's deals. And, I used to flip a lot and it burnt me out because it's so much work. And now, even if you only close, let's say we only close 10 loans a month, but in order to close those 10, you got to go through 40, 50 loans. And so even working on the deals that you can't fund, it's still fun, to look at them and to be able to say to the borrower, listen, I'm so sorry this deal doesn't work, but hey, let me give you some pointers on what you could do to help restructure this thing and maybe bring it back. And, we do pick up loans because I love deal structuring and just having fun with the guys and trying to figure it out and solve the puzzle. It's a fun game.
Yeah, I agree. It's extremely entertaining and on a daily, definitely a daily basis. So most of your stuff I know you do is in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
What is kind of an average deal look like a bread and butter deal look like for you guys?
So bread and butter deal for us is going to have an ARV somewhere in the 150 to 250 range. Obviously we've done a few that are less than that, and we've done a few that are more than that. But it's kind of the sweet spot is 150 to 250. Most of the borrowers that we deal with, they're not newbies. Not that we don't do business with newbies, because we have and we still do.
Yep.
We leverage our network of other borrowers to help newbies get in the game. We'll make recommendations of, hey, you should call this guy and partner with him, because if he's in the deal, we would fund this thing all day. Right. So the typical deal is 65 to 70% LTV, right? We're typically charging between 12 and roughly 13 and a half, 3 or 4 points. There's a couple other small fees that go in there too, but we try to keep our fees as minimal as possible and not rape and pillage, because that carries a lot of weight in the reputation when you're not just pimping the borrower for every penny you can squeeze out of them.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
I agree. We had a conversation with one of our other offices, and they're like, hey, we got this deal. It's not that strong. It's a low LTV, but like we can charge a certain amount of money. And we're like, well, there's a reason we can charge a certain amount of money. It's because the borrower doesn't have any other options. Like we're their only option. And it's like, so let's think about that a little bit. Like, yeah, I get it. You can make a lot of money on this particular deal, but they're also not going to perform. Like it's probably not the best one to do. What's, I know starting out, jack of all trades, had to do kind of everything inside the business and learn it. Like what's one thing that like you really enjoy doing currently? And also like, what's the high level stuff? I mean, I know you have staff, so like what's the high level role or job that that you're doing?
So, back in the day, obviously you wore every single hat in the company. And now I pretty much try to focus on more high level deals, like the staff is answering the phones. And when a lead comes in, if it doesn't fit the box, because it's close, but it doesn't fit the box, they refer the troubled deals to me to sit and see if we can't figure something out and rework. Because they can't do that anyway. They need permission to bend a rule. And so they refer all that stuff to me. If a borrower gets in trouble on a loan, they refer them to me. I hate foreclosing. I don't want to take properties from people. So I love, working with borrowers who run into a problem, so I can say, hey, listen, let me bring some resources that can help you dig out of this hole. Let's see what we can salvage and still keep some money in your pocket and keep the loan safe. So most of it, if you really boil it down, it's really strategy. I'm doing a lot of strategic stuff, a lot of vision stuff, and dealing with the bigger problem, which I think is actually the fun stuff. Most of the staff thinks it's a pain, but it's stuff I love. So I'm happy to take those in.
Yeah. And probably investor relations stuff too.
Yeah. Investor relations too.
Do you have I don't know if it's a CFO, but do you have like a controller or an accountant?
Yeah. So the bookkeeper that we have is actually CFO quality. She used to be part of a fractional CFO company. So even though she's technically a bookkeeper to me, she's a CFO. We do have a fractional CFO company that we hired to kind of look in and oversee, which is actually how I found her. So yes, we're to the point where we need that stuff now.
Yeah. What is it? What size portfolio do you guys have now, and like, how many deals a year do you guys typically average?
Well, this year we're down a little bit, but historically, it's 200 to 225. So we're closing pretty much a deal every single business day of the year on average. Now that'll stack up on certain days of the week, and so you close 3-4 at a time. But yeah, that's been the historic. Yeah,
that's the same thing, and probably the only difference is our average loan amount is slightly higher.
Yeah,
because unit wise, it's the same. Any reason you only lend in Wisconsin?
Well, so the reason that I lend primarily, let me back it up. The reason that I chose Wisconsin is because if I'm going to lend private capital, for me, it was kind of an original selling point. I wasn't very big, and I took our smallness and tried to turn it into a positive. And so as I was raising capital, I would tell our investors, listen, I keep everything close to home. Because if I met an investor from, say at a conference in Florida, and they want to invest with us in Wisconsin, I say, listen, I keep your money close to home, because if something happens, I can just get in my truck, drive, and go take care of it. Right? There's no guarantees, but it's a lot easier for me to deal with a property that's an hour from my house than it is to have to get on a plane and fly to California and deal with it. Right? So that's just our reputation kind of got that way just because of investor relations. But over the time, because of all the conferences I go to and half the ones, that I speak at, my reputation is now building across the country. And so I get people, reaching out to us all the time. And between, being active in Facebook groups, I get people from all over the country looking for money, and so the stuff that's outside the state, I don't use our private capital for, but I do have other friends who have also raised a lot of private capital, and they let me lend theirs out because they're comfortable doing the things I'm not comfortable with, which helps me to balance that out for our investors and for the borrowers.
How much scalability is there in your market? Like, could you do twice as much volume, or is that not available?
No, I think we could easily do double the volume in our current market. I think by the time you would get to triple where we're at, I think you'd be pretty much maxing out the whole, because we cover the whole state. I think you'd max out the state, and I wouldn't have a choice but to start branching out across state line.
Yeah. And have you done? I know we talked before this related to, some commercial stuff. Are you doing any commercial stuff, or just mostly fix and flips or fix and rent?
So our specialty is anything that's a renovation project. We do through brokering relationships that we have with other friends of mine, we do take on commercial projects, new construction, transactional funding, the day funding stuff, right? So we leverage all the tools and the relationships that we have as much as we can now.
Yeah. And I remember you telling me years ago, I'm not saying this is the case now, but years ago, that there wasn't much competition for just, for private capital. There wasn't many lenders out there. Is there, I got to believe there's probably still a lot of institutional capital though in Wisconsin, or is there not, that you compete with?
There's some. Wisconsin's not a hotbed by any stretch. And so the institutional capital will hit about 4 to 5 of the cities in the state, and that's about it, because everything else is rural. So I'm not afraid of the rural stuff because I know our market really well, and I know exactly how long things will take. And the truth is also maintaining an active flipping business right up until Derek and I separated last year keeps the pulse on things, because we were also flipping rural properties too, which is what gave us, an advantage over all that stuff. But right now there's probably 3 to 4 real players in the state for doing hard money, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good. And I mean, I know there's smaller operations. I mean, which is, which there's always going to be, individual self-directed IRA investors and things like that. Yeah, no, it's a good kind of, it's a good model. Are your employees work out of an office, or they all work remote?
No, everything's remote. I mean, my career is as an ex-IT guy, right? So from day one, that's how I was able to close loans from a cruise ship, because I built everything to be virtual and to be remote controlled, right? My desktop I can remote control my desktop. I can be anywhere and pretty much do anything other than, like, say, physically touch the power button on the desktop. So that all my staff is done that way too.
Are they all over the country, or are they located in the state of Wisconsin?
No, we have employees, like, I've got an employee up in New York. I've had employees from Ohio, Texas. Where else have I had it? Delaware, Virginia. I think that in Nebraska. I think so we've had them all over the place. Love
it. And then related to, inspections or going out to a property, draws, these have, local talent, local experts that know the areas to help you with that.
Yeah. We tap into local resources as much as possible. We also will allow video, like somebody can do a video, but one of the things that we learned about doing video is they need to go outside and stand on the curb and show me the front of the house, right? You can't just say, turn on your camera, because I actually have no idea what house you're standing in.
And 360 around to show me the address on the other house. We've done that sometimes based on kind of expediting it as necessary, but usually what we'll do is, we'll do it as a FaceTime. We won't tell them to video and send it to us. I mean, whatever. We just do it via FaceTime and then record it.
Yeah. We've tried different versions of the thing different ways. And we do have physical people that go and do random inspections too. So even if I accept your video, that doesn't mean someone's not showing up. Yeah. Right. Or if we FaceTime, someone still might show up, because while video is great and it saves a lot of time and it's convenient, it's not perfect, and you won't see everything because you're still looking at, things through a smaller screen with not as good a lighting. And so it's not a perfect thing.
Yeah, agreed. What's one thing you wish you either would have done differently or you'd recommended to maybe a newer hard money lender if they started over, if they were like maybe year 1 into their operation?
I think the most important thing that I wish we would have done a lot more of in the beginning, because like when it was just me by myself, I didn't really focus on processes and procedures and automating, things and setting up spreadsheets properly. You just kind of did the deal. And now, of course, as we've grown and scaled, I wish we'd have focused on processes and procedures before we grew and scaled, because growing and scaling without that stuff in place, it's really, really painful.
Yeah.
When COVID hit, In March of that year, and all the hedge funds on Wall Street that were buying up all the paper shut down, right? And all the hard money lenders across the country got put on pause because we were running private capital. Our business escalated 250% in 60 days. And we didn't have as good a systems as we thought. We had started to systematize, but we had never, because you just don't know what you don't know. So, hindsight is, build things that are sustainable.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to do that in real time because it's like, well, what did I quote this person? Or this was this one's this. We and then it's like you forget and like, it's funny because like inside the Hard Money Mastermind group, there's, I've seen a lot of lenders go from 2, 3, 4, 5 million to like 15 million in the last 2 years now. And like, that's been their big thing because before, like, they had in their head what was going on with everything. And like, they've hired their first or second or third employee at this point. And it's like, you can't do it all. Like, I know, like, it's different than it was before. Before you get on the phone with somebody, oh yeah, we'll do that deal, no problem, blah, 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 right on a piece of paper. and close it up. So I agree, you might as well start from scratch. And that might not necessarily be like go get Mortgage Automator or the Mortgage Office day one, because you just can't afford it. It's too expensive. There's no point. You can use an Excel spreadsheet, but like have something in place, or if not, you'll just drive yourself. You got to treat it like a business. I guess that's probably a good way to state it.
Yeah. You just have to have something. I mean, the tools that you put in place need to be the appropriate size for wherever you are, plus a little more, so that you can grow into them. But if you have a desire to actually really grow and scale one of these things, you have to be prepared that you're probably going to switch software at least once or twice throughout your life expectancy. Now, the good news is if you develop good processes and procedures, switching software is a lot less painful. You switch software and you don't have any processes and procedures, it gets really hard to actually set it up because they'll ask you questions. You're like, no, we just live by the seat of our pants and we make an exception to every rule under the sun. And while it gets you a lot of business being flexible, it's really hard to run a business with no set rules, at least long term.
Crap in, crap out. Like the data you put in is the data you're getting out. I mean, we're tied at our size portfolio. Like, we're almost tied to the Mortgage Office just because. And I shouldn't necessarily say that because we went from Excel spreadsheets to some like, whatever server version or desktop version of some crappy, payment calculators that whatever. Then we went to a company called iServicing mostly because it was price point. I mean, that's typically what it is with stuff like that. Like, you don't want to spend the price. And then we got Mortgage Office. And like, here's the thing. All these softwares, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people in the Hard Money Mastermind group use Mortgage Automator as well. I mean, I think it's whatever you use. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect on some of these things unless you build it yourself. But it's, it works the way it works. Like, I'll give you an example. Like a buddy of ours who is an investor in some of our deals, he's like, oh, man, it'd be cool if you guys, would net fund, because we don't net fund our loans. When we send them to the wires, and we don't want to. But like, it's one of those things that it's like, hey, we could do that, but like, it's going to be this many more steps. It doesn't make sense to do it. Even though it might be beneficial in some cases, this is why we don't do it. So like, you like create these processes, and it kills me when there's lenders that don't, they try to struggle through their head of how to fix a problem. And, cause I've seen it and I'm like, dude, this took us a year to figure out this stupid thing. All you have to do is this. And it's like, God, that's easy. But it's like, you don't know. There's no manual. So what's kind of the next steps for you, Jeff? Like, what's your kind of future game plan related to this business? Are you going to try to automate it more? Are you trying to grow more? Or are you in a position where you're like, I have a really good thing going, where we have we're at a good level of profitability based on, not as much risk? Where do you see this thing going kind of in years to come?
Well, so I'm definitely in growth mode yet. Matter of fact, I think I'm probably in more growth mode right now than we have been in the last 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
I'm also looking to grow through acquisition, not just, going out and
one-off deals.
hiring new customers, because it's actually a lot faster to go buy a customer pool than it is to go and create your own. We're in the middle, going back to software for a second. We're in the middle of actually building out our own platform, because there isn't anything that's perfect. And the truth is, as painful as it is to actually write and design your own, it ain't perfect either. Like, there's no way to get a perfect software system. But we like to do business the way that we want to do business. And, we want the software to be flexible to our rules and not us to be flexible to the business or to the software. So, so right now it's growth. Right now it's acquisitions time. I think there's a lot of turmoil that's coming in the hard money space in the next 5 years. A lot of it. There's a lot of hard money lenders right now that have taken the institutional path that are, pretty much out of business, and we're not hearing a lot of the stories. But I've got the friend that I mentioned before that I do a little bit of brokering for. He's down in Texas, and he does 350 mil a year in loans. And there's another lender in Texas who he's been chasing his entire career, kind of like that milestone. Like, I just want to catch that guy, right? Because he's better than me. That guy is out of business. He runs one of the largest hard money lending companies in the country, but he runs it completely on lines of credit, and the bank just pulled them all. And now he has no money to lend.
Yep.
And there's a customer pool that's there. Now, if you can still go and afford to buy that customer base from him before he's gone, it might be worth it for somebody. I'm not big enough to afford that kind of a customer list, but there's going to be a lot of hard money lenders that are going to struggle because they're institutionalized. But the ones that really focus on raising private capital, right? Because you can always do things with cash that you can't do with debt. And if you become the debt, you have all the power and the leverage in the deal. Yeah. So I think all that turmoil that's coming, I think the hard money lenders that are in trouble, it's just creating more and more opportunity for those of us that are going to stay focused and run clean businesses with private capital and stay away from the institutional stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect time to grow.
I'm a firm believer on that as well. I agree. No, I agree. I think, having full capital and that doesn't happen overnight, right? You can get institutional capital and other means and do it kind of the fast way. I don't like to be speculative when it comes to that stuff. Our model, which is similar to yours, is slow and steady wins the race, and you create a very good core foundation where even if there's like a really disastrous market, the impact will be minimal compared to other people. Yep. And I think that's important. And I think there goes with risk tolerance. And, listen, being a hard money lender, discipline wise, is challenging, right? Because you got to wear two hats, and they're opposite personality hats of, you got to be, salesy to try to get deals in the door, or you're not going to do any deals. But on the other side, you got to have like your banker hat on, where you got to, your risk, you got to be conservative to make sure you're writing the good loans to the right people, or else, in a year from now, you're gone.
Yeah.
And time will tell. Time will tell, and there's no point of, listen, we could all do a few bad deals. It's just a few, and like you could go out of business. Mm-hmm. It's just a few of them.
Yeah.
You can't absorb a hit like Wells Fargo can hit. So there's no need to. There's plenty of opportunities out there. There is, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. There's a lot of different ways to operate this business. I think you provide a lot of value to everybody listening and watching based on the way that your operation is set up, right? There's no right or wrong way to do it. You could be a one-man band. You could have a huge team. You could do everything. You could do nothing. As I think we all get older, we identify what part of the business we enjoy and what part of the business that we want to be involved in and what's the most beneficial for us.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Any last words? I want to make sure you have a chance to, get all your contact information out there for anyone that wants to potentially reach out to you.
Yeah. So, if somebody has questions for me, I'm always an open book, and I'm always happy to sit and just shoot the breeze about business. It doesn't even have to be lending business. We can talk about just your real estate business and what it takes to grow that. But if you want to reach out, my email address is jeff@bestreifunding.com. And obviously bestreifunding.com is also our website as well. Phone number is 920-341-8580. If I don't happen to answer the phone, one of the staff will, and if they can't handle it, they'll pass it over to me, and we'll get stuff taken care of and questions answered.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes as well, so everybody can access that. Jeff, I certainly appreciate you coming on. This has been extremely valuable. Got a wealth of knowledge, and it's good to kind of compare notes together. As both of our businesses continues to grow, and how a lot of other folks kind of in this group as their businesses grow as well.
Yeah, I happen to, I love networking with real estate investors, but the truth is, because I'm a lender, I love actually networking with other lenders that do exactly the same thing that I do. Because the truth is, we all have slightly different perspectives. And I love talking about the deals that went bad, right? Not the deals that kill you, but the deals that went bad. Like, okay, well, what can I do to avoid that stuff? So, joining the masterminds and going to events and, just having a Zoom call or a conversation like this and just, let's compare notes is always beneficial.
It's always beneficial because there's no one else to talk to about it besides that person. You're not going to be able to talk to your attorney or someone else or a friend. There's no one else unless they've been through it. And, there's only so many real lenders out there using private capital, their own money or other private that they've raised that have gone through it. So it's a lot of good wisdom. So I certainly appreciate it, Jeff. We'll all chat soon. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.